I'm Thomas Fahy from the Center for the Divine Will in Tennessee. We're going to start what I might call an intermittent series of talks on insights into our Father's kingdom. And this is number one, and we'll have others come along. Sometimes there'll be one after the other, and then sometimes there'll be a delay in between. So we will provide these to you to help you understand the purpose of our existence, why God created us, and what the fulfillment of the Lord's Prayer is all about. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as in heaven. We've taken our doctrines, our spiritual doctrines, from the writings of the servant of God, Luisa Picaretta. And today's date is the 14th of January, 2013. Here's a little tidbit here from one of the volumes I'd like to read to you. It says, Jesus tells Luisa, "You must know that the most noble and the most sublime and the greatest and most heroic act is to live in my will and to work in my will." That's amazing that he would say this is the most sublime and most heroic act. In other places, he talks about how living in the divine will seriously is greater than martyrdom. And the reason is that we're martyring our own will to give way to the divine will at all times. That's our ideal. Today's session will be mostly about God's all-surpassing interest in the reign of the Father's will in human souls and the excessive merciful love of Him to assure that this really happens in us. I'd like to read a few points that are not direct quotes from Luisa. They're from the understanding of Luisa's writings. Okay, God is a single being in a relationship of three divine persons. And they're united in their shared essence of one divine will and their nature of one divine love. Their nature of divine love compels them irresistibly to give themselves to another personal being and to share their divine real life with that other being, but a being with the capacity to receive all that they want to give us and to understand them and to love them, and to give them reciprocity in the same manner that they love us, divinely, infinitely, eternally, and becoming a true divine companion for the Holy Trinity. Now, you might say that if there were another God, which is not possible, but if there were another God, then He would make a great companion for them because He would have the same characteristics as they. But since it's not possible, God has another plan in order to get what He really wants. He has a plan to use the power and the wisdom and love of their divine being and their divine will to satisfy the longings of this nature of His. It impels them and compels them irresistibly to share to the greatest extent possible what He is and what He has. And the divine Trinity, to exercise this great plan of theirs, created from nothing another being with the capacity to receive all that He can give as far as is possible to another created being, to another being who is created, and to satisfy their longings for divine companionship. And they did this by creating a human being, a natural creation of a human being, supernaturally operated, but the being himself would be natural in our human way of speaking, who was endowed supernaturally with these divine powers and qualities necessary to satisfy the longings of eternal love. And this sublime endowment was none other than the greatest gift that God can give. And what is that greatest gift that God can give? It is their own will. And this sublime endowment was none other than the greatest gift that God can give. As I just said, it was their own eternal will and it is the source of all that is good, all that is beautiful, all that is true, and all that is holy. And whom did they give it to? The first human creature, Adam, and to his spouse, Eve. Adam's human will would be united to the divine will of the Holy Trinity in such a way that the three divine persons could communicate to his will, to his human will, their own holiness, their own beauty, and their own strength, and they would operate in his acts with their own will, filling them, the acts of Adam, with their divine life, and thus transforming those acts of Adam which we see exteriorly, which we could see exteriorly if we happen to be there, of course, but the exterior acts of Adam, behind all of that was the power and the beauty and the holiness of God operating in him. And these acts of his multiplied forever, and they embraced all of eternity, and they penetrated everywhere. Adam had no history prior to his immaculate creation, and therefore had no experience of sin or the misuse of his human will. He was created perfect by God, who does all things perfectly. Even in this high and sublime original state, Adam still was to grow in grace and age and wisdom before God and those who would follow him. His original capacity was full of grace, but this would expand with every knowledge of the divine will that he gained and for every act that he did in the divine will. Thus, his expanding capacity would also be always full of grace, even as it became greater and greater, and with an ever-increasing fullness. Okay, this ends our first little session on insights into the Father's kingdom. God bless you. I'm Thomas Fahy.